Well, Mr. Zellerex, it's time for another Star Citizen podcast, number 16. How you feeling about that?
Oh, I'm actually feeling pretty good. How about yourself?
Hanging in there. As everybody probably knows, and it shouldn't be lost, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Had a lot of challenges with family lately, and that's why we're delayed this week with the podcast. But we hope to kind of get things back on track here in the next couple of weeks here, and then get back to the regular every Wednesday, Thursday thing. So I'm really excited about that. So without further ado, one of the things I think we haven't been doing it early enough, Zel. So I'll let you go.
Well, it's great to see everybody this week. If you like what you hear, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Hey, give us a big thumbs up, and give us something to chat about down below. And we hope you like this one.
We absolutely do. And I thought we would just kind of, obviously the ship Showdown, if you heard the last podcast, we went through round one, and now we have a lot of the results on round two. We're kind of down to the last kind of battle in round two. And we really then can kind of take a preliminary look at the semis and maybe make some some predictions on the finals, and that type of thing. So, unless there was anything else before that you wanted to chat about, I figured we'd dive right in.
Well, let's go.
All right. So the first one, it was the Redeemer versus the Scorpius in round two. And, it looks like the Scorpius snuck by on that one. A couple battle of a couple newer ships there.
Well, to be honest, when you look at the overall from when we did the 16, very little surprises here. Scorpius beat out the Redeemer handily. And in retrospect, I don't know if that is, if that was a big surprise or not. I know the Redeemer does have its fan base, but the Scorpius, it's the new hotness. So,
it is. I mean, it's a ton of firepower. And it's really got kind of that rule of cool going. Not that the Redeemer's kind of cool in its own way. Absolutely. I love the Nutcracker, engines, and it's also, a hard nut to crack, if you will. But I do think it doesn't surprise me. The Scorpius has that X-Wing kind of vibe to it. It's just one of those ships that, it packs a lot of punch. It's got a little bit different way that it handles that back turret. And it apparently just was definitely voted by the fan bases to advance.
Oh yeah, it's a slick ship, and like I said, it's the new hotness. I really like it. I got to fly it early on and was pleasantly surprised with how much I ended up liking the thing. The 600i and the Carrack, we saw that one kind of coming.
We did. And even though, I think you and I both went Terrapin, if I'm not mistaken, just because we're Terrapin fanboys. Yeah. But, of course it doesn't surprise me. The 600i's got a stalwart group of people that love the 600i. As I am thinking of you, sir. I know that you love it. And, of course, with the rework coming as well, there's going to be some real, upside to the fact that it's going to have all that space but new pipeline kind of mechanics to take a look at it. Very interesting. I think that my own thought is that the Carrack, kind of did the same thing to the 600i that it did to the 400i, which is, it's just too much ship. The Carrack does so much, carries a little more. It absolutely, it's just the Carrack. I mean, it's one of those ships right now that's just kind of a real, just a real bellwether for how Star Citizen is. It's Yeah,
it's venerable. You know, it's one of those things that
venerable is an excellent word.
um, yeah, I mean, it has a lot going for it. And when they do the rework on the 600i and kind of bring it up to spec a little bit, I mean, I I don't know if there's ever a timeline that the 600i would ever beat out the Carrick. The Carrick being, you know, kind of in the hierarchy that it's at right now. Now, you know, maybe a little way down the road when things like the Odyssey come in, and you know, that might pull the Carrick down a peg or two. We'll have to see. You know, I would definitely, I'll definitely be Team Odyssey for sure. But we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, you know, I don't know if there's ever an instance that the 600i would ever beat out the Carrick. It's just, you know, like you said, the Carrick's the Carrick. So
yeah, I mean, it really is one of those ships that if you're really doing basically anything in Star Citizen, the Carrick is great for it. I mean, if you've played Star Citizen and you've been on the Carrick, you know what I'm talking about. It just has. There's just a lot of things about, and of course, as we know, not everything's there yet. You know, the modularity down there with the cargo bays. You know, you and I have spent lots of time talking about how the Carrick is definitely going to come into its own in the future, even more so than it is now. And really, it's one of those ships that, from organization gameplay standpoint, is, you know, it's you know, kind of a requirement in many ways.
Well,
it's an absolute.
You know, it's the only ship that you can respond to now.
Besides the 890, right?
Yep, except the 890. So, and you know, the 890, I guess you could haul people around, and you know, as at the org level. But I think the Carrick, I mean, it's nice as the 890 is. You know, I still think the Carrick's probably a little bit easier to do org things with. So,
and listen, the 890 is a cool ship, but it's, you know, I think the Carrick is the perfect size. You know, like for smaller gameplay, and of course it's not on the list, so you know, so.
Yep, not on the list. Now that would be something. I'd like to see how that played out.
I think so.
890 against Carrick.
I think I'd like to know that too. So, well, moving on down to the fan favorite, though, right? I mean, so you got the Mercury and the Raft, right?
I'll tell you, it's my favorite.
Well, and I, you know. You know, it's so funny because I don't know, the Raft and the Mercury and they're not really in the same class to me. I mean, and part of it is because we have not seen the cargo refactor or external cargo or understand how any of that stuff's going to necessarily work, where the Raft could really shine. I mean, the Mercury carries, you know, 18 more SCU of cargo space. And then is, you know, it's just much faster. It has more firepower. I don't know how the Raft. I was actually surprised the Raft got by the Freelancer Max, knowing so. A lot of the folks that I know, they just love the Freelancer Max. So, you know, there was some Argo hotness there that maybe, you know, with it being a new kind of an Argo ship that kind of got it by. But I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, it was kind of close, I guess. Maybe closer than some of these other matchups that I've seen. But yeah, especially with the Raft being broken. You know, it's been broken for 2 patches now. So.
Yeah, well, that's a very excellent. That's another point. One that I didn't even consider. That elevator hasn't been working very well. You know what I mean? And the Max could carry more and had more firepower, and you know, in today's game or whatever. And listen, that's no knock on the Raft. It's Argo cool, man. You know, I like.
Oh, it is Argo cool, but you know, I guess it's one of the things. It's the Freelancer had way more versatility
I
than
agree
the
with
Raft.
that. Yep. Could carry a, you know, I think we talked about that. You know, it could carry a couple of ROCs. It actually carried more cargo. It had more firepower. It was just surprising to me.
Flies better. You know, the Raft kind of flies how the
Chunky.
yeah, kind of a derpy flyer.
Yep.
Kind of flies like the Mole does. You know, it's pretty derpy.
Yep. And listen, I appreciate the Rafts, like how it has this incredibly like this very, very awesome landing gear. You know, like it just 4 big eye posts that just kind of just hit. You know, I like the Raft, but I just, like I said, I was surprised. I thought the Freelancer Max was going to get it for sure.
Yeah, I did too, actually. But you know, this matchup with the Merc was a no contest.
Yeah, way out of its league against the Mercury.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I do have a bias. I love the Merc. It's, you know, one of the ships that really has a great handle on multiplayer gameplay. You know, I really like the way it looks. It's like you said, it definitely hauls more than the Raft. You can cram I've seen people cram so much, you know, so many things inside that cargo bay. You had like cyclones pulled up, you know, up against the wall, straight, you know, like in a vertical sense, and you know, dozens of you know, quad bikes and stuff in there, and you know, a few buggies and this and that, and it's like so much stuff because it has that nice wide ramp and open bay. I mean, it really has a nice bay, so you can cram a lot of stuff in there. You know, if that's your thing.
Yeah,
but you know, like I said, when they do the gold standard pass on it, the rework, and they put in the new elevator closer to the cockpit, then yeah, for me, you know, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, there may not be a better daily driver. I mean, it's going to be real. Once it's not, you know, kind of a, you know, 4 or 5, like a lift, you know, ramp, a lift, and it's, you know, 3 or 4 doors to get to the cockpit. It's really going to shine. I mean, and obviously there are other elements that would make it shine as well. Some of the data handling, gameplay, and that type of thing. Well,
let's talk about, you know, this little, you know, this gets brought up quite a little bit. Is you know, with the secret passages that's in it, you know, that back area that's kind of open, that's kind of in that secret area. I mean, I think it's cool, but then again, you know, I guess the controversy is that it's a kind of a, since everybody knows that it's there anyways, that it's kind of a space waster where they could, you know, open it up a little bit more and have more space, or, you know, add something for gameplay value. You know, I know a lot. It's kind of like the Taurus, where you have that back area of the Taurus that's shielded from scans, and I know that the Star Runner does the same thing.
right.
You know, it has that little shielded area. And is it kind of cool that, you know, your chessboard is kind of a secret passage? Yeah, I mean, that most definitely is cool. But, you know, would you like to gain a little bit more space and, you know, take a little bit of that out? Because at the end of the day, it's kind of a novelty.
I agree with that 100%. And listen, I would. I mean, if you're asking me just like open-endedly, would I kind of redo the Mercury and not worry about all that space underneath it and having those tunnels and all that? First of all, I appreciate that they did do that in the pipeline. I truly do. And I do hope that there's ways to introduce that type of thing to ships in the future. You know, like in your own way. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, as far as the Merc itself, I mean, it's just no one's going to be fooled by that stuff. And so because of that, I think that there's a lot of real estate that could be reclaimed to make that ship even more versatile.
Well, you know, with the way a lot of those tunnels and, you know, for lack of the better term, you know, the Jeffrey tubes, to kind of borrow from Star Trek a little bit. Sure. You know, could I see you having a smuggler's hold like underneath that chessboard? Yeah, that would be kind of cool. Would you expand the bay out a little bit, taking, you know, where a lot of that side area that you go down the side and that back area where, you know, where those where inside the interior of the ship is, or, you know, there is access to equipment in there as well. So is it going to be one of those things that they add components to that area that, you know, that's how you access them to give those tunnels some functionality? Or, you know, or would you just wipe all that out and put the components up against the wall like, you know, on any other ship?
You know, it's a great question. I mean, I definitely think one of the things that I would probably do is allow you to take that chessboard and align it however you want. You know, you can put the pieces wherever you want, and that's the thing, and then set it to that. So that's what would trigger opening that door. So that's the one thing that I would kind of, like, for a security measure, would make it where you kind of randomly put you move the chess pieces where you want them to be moved, and when all the chess pieces are in that particular place. So that would be an awesome way to kind of create like kind of a key mechanism that's very unique to that specific Mercury. I would also definitely do some kind of a shielded cargo, underneath that thing, where also it would be shielded from the FPS scanners as well. When people start getting FPS, you know, the ability to kind of know where players are at because of FPS scanners and that type of thing. I would absolutely have, so you could literally hide in there. And then I would be okay for it to be, you know, so once again, it's shielded cargo, it's shielded from FPS, and there is some kind of a key mechanism on it, based on how, the other thing is have it, there should be some place, some panel that you can pop up, open, and then get yourself out of. You know what I mean? So one other place where it pops up in the ship and, type of thing. And I don't necessarily know how that would all work exactly, but, just someplace so you could get, kind of get yourself out of it. So if you knew somebody was, in a certain room or whatever, like, you could actually kind of sneak up on them, pop back out into the ship. So let's say you're kind of like, you've landed the ship, and then all of a sudden you see something, you're sitting in the cockpit, you see somebody coming in on the radar. You run back in that room and you kind of arrange the chess pieces a certain way. And then all of a sudden that door opens and then, you climb down in there and you click close and it closes the thing and shifts the chess pieces back to kind of standard. You know what I mean? So, and then so if somebody wanted to get in there, they'd have to know the key. You know what I mean? Type of thing. So something along those lines, I think it would be kind of cool. But then you may have a way to get out of it, or maybe even if it just dropped out of the bottom of the ship.
Well, the ship does have those floor panels.
Right.
That you could easily pop those things, up and out, and then it really would be like the Millennium Falcon, where you were hiding in the floor.
Yep.
So,
how about you? How would you?
Yeah, that would be cool. Somebody was like, hunting around and went into the court, like into the crew quarters, and you pop one of those floor panels up behind that guy, and shot him in the back. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that'd be kind of cool. But, to kind of go back to the original question, would you rather gain about, 5 or more SCU and do away with, the little Jeffrey tubes and the little smuggler's hold? Or, is it just cooler to have the smuggler's hold?
Well, I mean, I would be okay if there was variants, right? Where, if one of them has it. What would actually be kind of cool is if there are variants, then you wouldn't necessarily know going into every one it's the exact same.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? So I definitely would be the type of guy who would fly one probably, well, it depends on what I was up to, right? I mean, if I was definitely doing some smuggling, then having the smuggler's holds, an important thing. But, me probably not smuggling. I mean, unless it's, unless there's some good reason why I'm doing it. There's some freedom fighters and I'm trying to get them some arms or whatever. Type of thing. I mean, for the most part, I'm an SCU guy. So, taking that thing from 114 to 119 or 124 or, something like that, I would do that in a second.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But then again, it's not really designed to be a hauler, although it does have that capability. I mean, that's the beauty of the Mercury, is that it has a lot of functionality.
She does.
Has a lot of versatility. It's pretty much my daily driver. But, we'll see. Do I like, the secret passages and the smuggler's hold? Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
There's some really cool in there for sure, man.
And I guess that's it. It's just, like I said, it's a novelty. Is it the, how much functionality is it going to have in your gameplay? We'll see. We're not the, we're not the smugglers types. We're usually, we're usually the law-abiding citizens. So, but like you said, there's, I guess there's a way of RPing that a little bit where, yeah, we gotta, deliver these medical supplies to the freedom fighters or whatever. So.
Yeah, exactly. There definitely is some reasons why you may be smuggling that are actually kind of very Robin Hood, or they've got there's a good reason behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so yeah. Anyways, though, the Mercury, it seemed to kind of very very cleanly get past the raft, and really we'll come back. I'm sure we'll pivot back around to it, but looks like it has looks like it's gonna have a pretty good run. So sliding on down, it was interesting. I was really happy, and this is just me, but I mean, I was honestly really happy to see the Eclipse kind of, or pardon me, the Pisces expedition kind of slip past the Mule, just because for the meme factor. I mean, first of all, and I mean this with all due respect, I adore the Pisces expedition. You know what I mean? I think it's a great ship. She's a little runabout, just a little skiff. A little bit of cargo room back there, a couple of extra seats. It handles like a dream. You can land that thing on a dime. I really like that ship, and that was also nice to see it was really also nice to see the Avenger Titan kind of slip past as well. So I don't think that was a big surprise. No, not necessarily.
Although there is quite a few people out, doing a lot of the missions with the Eclipses these days. You see it a lot. So,
and it currently looks like the Pisces is in a pretty commanding position to take that round as well. So it's beating out the Avenger handily. So so it's up by 30% almost. So so going into that semifinal round, it's going to be really interesting to me. I mean, I am very I won't want to say point blank. I'm very, very interested now about the Scorpius versus the Carrack. I mean, how much... If this is kind of your old... the Carrack's been around for a while. Everybody knows what it is. It's it's an absolute powerhouse in the game now. What its capabilities are. We've talked about it being too much ship, but like you mentioned, the Scorpius is the new hotness. So it'll be interesting to me, like when it coming back around to the semis, who's going to get by there. And I tell you, that's a mixed bag for me. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult for me to read the room on that one. But you have thoughts on it, Zel?
Well, you've got your Carrack fanboys out there that's, they feel like the Carrack needs another skin. So, but yeah, man,
the upstart Scorpius.
Yeah, that really is a toughie.
If you think about it, it really is good. It's like, which way is the wind going to blow in the community? It's very interesting.
I knew the Scorpius, it beat the Redeemer up pretty bad.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got the old stalwart versus kind of the new hotness, like you were saying, stealing your thunder a bit.
I don't, man, this is really a toughie to...
See, I mean, it's a difficult to read the room on that one.
My first gut reaction saying that that the player base is kind of with the, in with the new, out with the old kind of attitude. I believe this one's going to be a close matchup. I think the Scorpius is going to pull it out.
Oh, interesting. I
just get that weird feeling.
Well,
I don't know
what, and most of the time you're right. I'm gonna just pick the Carrack, just because I think the Carrack may just be. It's been too much ship. It just does a lot more. It's hard to say. I mean, the Scorpius could just wipe the floor with it, but I'll pick the Carrack just for fun. But I honestly do think, between those two ships, my choice would probably be the Carrack as well. Even though I adore the Scorpius, but the Carrack would be certainly a little more up my alley. So, yeah. But I could not, like I said, I can't read the room on that one at all. It's very difficult. Like I said, the Scorpius could get 10 times as many votes. I have no idea.
Well, and I guess it's another thing, too, is are people... using the same rationale that we are. We kind of look at things at a different perspective. It's
true.
How much functionality does the thing have? Is it, is it fun? Does it fit a purpose? That type of thing. Where, some people are kind of on I like the Scorpius better, and not necessarily kind of weigh its merits against the Carrack, but I think the Scorpius is cooler than the Carrack. So I don't know, man. I could be wrong on this one, but for some reason I just get a gut feeling that the Scorpius is gonna. Well,
your gut's usually not wrong, so we'll have to see how that one goes. It does look like we mentioned earlier, the Pisces is going to kind of get by the Titan. I think there'd have to be kind of knowing how much time is left in the day today, there'd have to be a real big push on the Titan. I don't think it's going to get there. So, I mean, looking at that one, the Mercury versus the Pisces, I mean, I think we're in the same waters we were before. When the Mercury took on the Cutlass Black, too much ship. When the Mercury took on the Raft, too much ship. Certainly when the Mercury takes on the Pisces, too much ship. I think the Mercury is going to be hands down the winner there. I would be surprised if there would be some meme element to it if the Pisces beat the Merc in that situation.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I think it was one of those, that would be one of those situations where, yes, it would be a meme situation that the Pisces would beat the Mercury. Same deal. One of the things that the Mercury has going for it is the rule of cool. And I know there's, quite a few people out there that are, MSR fans. So
that Millennium Falcon vibe for sure.
But people are just like, would vote for the Pisces, kind of like, let's do that underdog thing, and you may end up seeing the Pisces against the Carrick.
That would. I never really thought about that. That would be so funny if it ended up being, like the Carrick versus its snub. That would actually be really funny. I still think I believe in my heart that the Mercury will probably beat the Pisces. But if for some reason, allowing ourselves to imagine, the snub against the actual mothership. Oh my stars, that's really funny. At that point, I'm going to vote for the Pisces if that's the case.
Well, that's memeing its way to number one type of situation where, man, it's one of those deals. If the Carrick wins and the Mercury wins, then I think the Mercury will pull it out. Because I think the Mercury will beat the Carrick.
Yep.
Now, this is, you're talking about your bellwether moment. This is where you'd kind of figure it out. If the star system population is pushing the new hotness as it is the Scorpius, if the Scorpius beats out the Carrick, then I think
she might go on a run. Yeah.
I think the Mercury may not beat the Scorpius if it's that's the way it rolls.
I agree with that assessment.
But if the Pisces beats the Mercury, then the Pisces will end up beating the Scorpius. I believe that's how it'll play out. So.
If for some reason the Pisces beats the Mercury, then there's a meme wave that's trying to push the Pisces, and there's a good chance it will get pushed over the top. I also agree wholeheartedly. If the Mercury beats the Pisces, there's the Mercury kind of meme wave kind of gets stopped, and so you put the Mercury against the Carrick. I'm definitely going to give it to the Merc on that one. You put, but if the Scorpius kind of gets past the Carrick and it's not close. You know what I mean? Then especially if even a separation of a couple thousand votes, then I think that you're probably looking at the Scorpius running through the champion. So, as it sits now, in my mind, you're looking at it's probably going to be. Well, it could be any of these, right? But I mean, it will be. If the Scorpius beats the Carrick, then I think the Scorpius will get there. If the Mercury beats if the Carrick beats the Scorpius and it goes against the Merc, I think the Merc will get there. Unless I've underestimated the meme wave on the Pisces and she's just going to roll. So.
Yeah, it's. We'll know tomorrow if how this is going to play out. So, but we could be totally wrong.
Well, and that's exactly right, and how fun. I mean, and I actually enjoy. I mean, it shouldn't be lost on anybody else. And one of our favorite things to do is talk about ships. We'd fill endless podcasts talking about ships. It's great. So.
Oh, it's our thing. It's our thing.
It's our thing. So, moving on to kind of tonight's, more the meat and potatoes of tonight's discussion, and something that near and dear. I know it's near and dear to your heart, Zel. It's absolutely near and dear to mine, and that is base building. And so I'm really excited to talk about base building tonight.
Oh, I am too. It's one of those things that, is that one thing that, like with Inside Star Citizen, when they were showing those outposts and the possibilities that these these certain outposts are going to have, and it was kind of expressed that you'll also be able to take over or control these outposts in some shape, form, or fashion. But then that brings up the conversation about base building. And one of the things that another thing that kind of came up this week is people were talking about, the Gray Cat land beacon that
the old land claims
that was being sold back in 2017, and how all that's going to play out, from here on out. It's one of the things we never did get any real numbers on how many people did purchase those at the time. I saw them pop up and was like, oh yeah. And they took them down fairly quick. I mean, by the time that I kind of got back around to it again, that they weren't for sale. So, it's pretty interesting. So they have two different sizes on these land claims.
Which stunned me, by the way. I mean, the size of these things. I mean, I just want to say that before I know before you riff on it a bit. I was literally stunned by the sizes of these land claims, and just kind of in preparation for this. I mean, I'd read about land claims or whatever, and I just assumed it was just like, a couple city blocks or something. It's not that.
No, they're actually pretty substantial, if you think about it. The smallest, the smaller of the two is, a 4K by 4K square.
4 kilometers by 4 kilometers. It's crazy.
That's pretty big.
It's huge.
I mean, and and the other one is 8 kilometer by 8 kilometer square, and that kind of puts for old dogs like us that are out mining and things, and we know how far we can ping out for signals and things. And just think, when you set your scanner to 90 degrees and you do a ping, you go out just right short of 5,000 kilometers, or 5 kilometers, and 5,000 meters, I guess is what I was gonna say, but 5 kilometers. So that's actually pretty far, especially when you're flying in a ship that's moving at about 300 meters a second.
I mean, think about the size of Lorville. I mean, 8 by 8 kilometers. Does Lorville fit in that? You know what I mean? Maybe not quite. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
That's
maybe 8 kilometers for sure, because
the longest train ride out to the very edges of that's only like a little over a kilometer.
Yeah, from what you see with the the shipyard all the way up to the Hurston building. Yeah, I'd say that is 8 to 10 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think when you have an 8 by 8 kilometer, that is a very large plot. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, and so anyways, the whole land claim thing was, like I said, it surprised me. I didn't realize that the sizes were so big, and I will tell you. I mean, the next time they sell these, I'm going to be looking pretty closely at them. Yeah.
Well, they originally sold for, I think the 4K or the 4K one was $35, and I think the 8K one was like $45 or $50. So, and I think they got a lot of, at the time, I think there was some rumbling about it, and it may have sounded like a pretty cool marketing thing at the time, but I think people started asking a lot of questions that they weren't necessarily ready to answer and I think they shut it down pretty quick. But it does exist. It is there. People do own them, and I would really like to get, some numbers on how many people bought them at the time. That would be pretty interesting.
It would be interesting, and I think I seem to remember that somebody somewhere along the line made the claim that it was like if you think about the total amount of land that there is on all the different moons and planets or whatever, that it was a tiny amount. Like it wouldn't even take up like a 5% of, say, one of the like Lyria or something. Seems like I read something along those lines. Like but
yeah, I think it was said that with the player base, with the current player base, with the amount of people that actually have bought the game, that you could accommodate everybody that is in the game currently on one planet.
I knew it was something along those lines, though, for sure, and it doesn't surprise me. So, because scale is the thing in Star Citizen that continues to blow my mind. And it's one of those things where, if you're in a prospector and you're up over a Quantanium rock, and then you go land next to that rock, they're enormous. You really do lose perspective on how little your character is on those planet surfaces until you get on one of those planet surfaces and you get out and you look at how insignificant, your guy is.
Well, what's pretty wild about that, and when I first heard this number, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. And I think they used Lyria as an example. And Lyria is kind of, it's not the biggest landmass either out there. It's kind of on the, I don't know if it's as small as, say, Calliope or, some of the Microtech moons. I think it's a little bit bigger than that.
But it is on the smaller side, I think.
But right. I think it is. I don't think it's as big as like Daymar. And some of those other moons, but I think the total landmass of Lyria was 1.8 million kilometers.
That's incredible,
and that is that is nuts. You're like, holy
that's a
shit.
lot of 8x8 plots.
It really is, and
like a stunning amount of them.
And you got to think. I mean, this is just standard. With 100 systems that they have planned, and all the different planets and all the different moons. One of these days we need to get a count on, and I know a lot of this stuff is going to be changed. We've spoken about this before, that some of these, I feel like some of these systems they kind of cheaped out on.
Right.
And they're like, oh well, there's only like 2 planets, and one of the planets is too close to the sun to even be inhabitable. To me, I mean, you guys are building the game. You guys have control over all these, how systems are built out and look, and I know every one of them are trying to, they're trying to make them unique and things like that, but when we talked about what our, dream system, dream planet would look like, my big thing was, I feel like my system needs a lot of planetary bodies. It needs, 5-6 planets, and each planet needs, 2-3 moons, that type of thing. And so, it'd be great to have, 12 different, 12 different, planets and moons to be landing on in one system. So when you kind of look around and you see that, some of these systems only, like I said, they only have like 2 planets. One of them's too close to the sun. So it's not even usable. And, so they're like, yeah, we can build these out because this one only has, we can build out 100 systems because, hey, we got a couple of them that only has 1 planet on it,
Right.
So I feel like somewhere down the road that might change a little bit, where, we need to kind of flesh out the galaxy a little bit more than kind of cheaping out on some of these systems, and just say, hey, well, I think at the bare minimum, a system needs to have like 3 planets that are usable. So, but I digress. To kind of get back to what I was saying is, with 100 systems, with however many planets that that they have planned, at least one planet per system. So, just say that there's going to be maybe 900 planets or 1,000 planets and moons. I guess I'll add the and moons bit.
That's a staggering amount of real estate.
I mean, it could be anywhere. And the way these, land claims work is that once you put the beacon down, the Gray Cat beacon, which I think is kind of cool, but once you place that beacon down, then you have to go, you have to rush to the claim office in whatever system it is, or the closest claim office. Not every system is going to have something like that. So the closest claim office, however many jumps away that is, and claim that land area before anybody else. Your beacon's there as kind of a holding, as like a holding thing, saying you were the first there. Now, here's a little trick. I don't know if these things can be removed, like if somebody, like another player could pull them up out of the ground, or, whatever the case may be, or, but it's not yours until you go and claim it at the claims office. I mean, you got the holder, like to hold my spot with and I think that's the controversy. I think people were asking the questions, well, once I put my beacon down, and then I have to go to the claims office to pay, to register it with the UEE and make my claim where it is secure, and legally you own it. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. And then it comes up as, what rights do you have to that area? And right. I think it kind of got brought up a little bit this week, as a matter of fact. Funny enough, on another channel where they were asking these questions too. Inforunners was kind of asking these questions, and like I told you before, it's funny, man. We definitely hit that thing, man. We seem to be talking about things because we had this plan, for a little while. This particular, we had planned this particular thing for a little while. So, I think we planned it, about, well, as it is now, about 10 days ago. So it's funny that, how that collective conscience works. how these kind of get kind of brought up again. But like I said, man, I'm digressing again. No. So, yeah, and I guess that's the that's the prickly parts where, I bought my little land claim, my little Gray Cat beacon, my little land claim beacon, the geotac, and somebody scoops up my claim. Did I waste my $35 or $40 or whatever the case may be, because this is the place that I was wanting to build or own or whatever the case may be, and how all that's going to play out. Now, I do know, like I said, it's not yours until you go to the claims office and secure it, where it is registered under your name. And does somebody have the ability to pull up your geotag before you can make your claim? So that's kind of a tricky thing. Are you going to have a couple of your buddies sitting on the thing, guarding it, get a couple of ground vehicles that are heavily armored and a couple of tanks and start pointing them in all different directions, saying, hey, buzz off.
Oh, I remember, just really, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too far, and people who listen to the podcast know you and I love Star Wars Galaxies, but I remember the day that you could put you could build your, I think it was kind of like a land claim process in order to kind of build your city. And I can't exactly, maybe it was building a certain building. I don't remember exactly. I think that's what it was.
Once you put down your city hall and stuff, it was a land claim thing.
Right.
Now, you could put a house wherever you wanted it.
Right.
It's, it gave you that interface to where it gave you the top-down view. And once because all these houses, they actually, at the time, actually cost, pretty penny. So once you bought a house, and you could sit it down just about anywhere, as long as you were so far outside of the city, the city boundaries, as long as when you were putting it down, it went green, you were good to go.
Yep.
So, and that was secured. No one can pull it up.
But one point I wanted to make was I remember taking the day off of work. So it seems like there was a fellow named Positronic, really nice gentleman who is kind of going to be, who really kind of had this he'd actually had this whole design of how he wanted to do the city, because space was quite tight. You really needed to make sure that you kind of understood it kind of block by block. I mean, unless you were just kind of whatevering it, you know what I mean? And I know that he had spent a lot of time kind of designing the kind of the layout or whatever. So when we, and I remember just that huge run and being so excited and being able to put that thing down the first time. And so it's a good question you're raising. I mean, it's like, what if a couple of people have their eye on it, and the day that becomes kind of like the gold rush, and people are going, is it gonna, you're right. I mean, is somebody going to kind of land a ship like over the top of that thing to protect it? And, are people going to, what's it going to be like? But, I mean, they do say there's going to be billions and billions of square kilometers to choose from. It will be very interesting to see if there are some real vicious land disputes over certain areas.
Well, a lot of it's going to be, down to the mineral content of that area. You're going to want to put your base down on something that, is producing ore, some sort of something that whatever the, we know that this is going to be a thing. And I guess the deal is whatever ore vein types, or, however these nodes are going to be, however they're going to work, is that you're going to want your base to kind of generate some sort of income, or, heck, just base building materials in general. Right. So, so we know a lot of these, these areas on these planets and things, a lot of them is going to be based on the ore content, of the little area that you want. It even got brought up that like real estate could be your thing. You run around and buy up all these claims, for, that's what you've been doing.
Wow,
you've been going to all these different planets and finding these mineral, rich, little plots of land, and you start buying them up and claiming them for yourself, and then you can, then you sell them, to another org or a homesteader or whatever. So, that thing, that can be a thing as well. So, we'll see how they handle that, because I'll tell you what, that might make people pretty damn salty if, you have these entrepreneurs rolling out there buying freaking everything up, sort of like how the .com craze rolled in, and all these people started buying up names like Nissan and Pizza Hut, and where they knew that these big companies are gonna want their .com, and hold them hostage for $1 million or something. So maybe that kind of situation in Star Citizen, where all these people are buying up the best little pieces of ground that they want to resell to somebody, and for an exorbitant amount of price. Now that might make people a little salty. So that kind of goes into something that we may talk a little bit about tonight is, how close to real life do you want your game?
Well, yeah, I think it's something we definitely want to talk about a little bit, and the other thing, something I wanted to mention to you is something I was thinking about as you were kind of chatting there is, okay, I understand you have this land claim in which it then entitles you to what are called land rights. You know what I mean? And that means that if somebody kind of encroaches on your land, they trespass, they squat, they're going to get crime stats. And of course, I would imagine that depending on if they destroy your property, that type of thing, they may get higher stats, and, it may even eventually trigger kind of local law enforcement, type of thing.
But the thing is that not all of it's going to be in UEE territory.
Well, and that's the one, question I had. The second question, just to kind of drive right to the point. Do you think you're going to be able to create bases without land claims?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No. Mm-mm. No, they're part and parcel. You have to have the land claim before you can build your base.
Interesting. So yeah. So I mean, then these unclaimed worlds, and it does make me wonder if someday if there's going to be these, and you and I would love this, right? If there were mechanics where, just based on how factions were doing, and potentially the UEE could maybe take over with some of these unclaimed worlds. You know what I mean? Imagine kind of the gold rush, like the hour after, the UEE claims one of the unclaimed systems. When people are kind of streaming in there to, and then maybe there's some back and forth, and all of a sudden the UEE loses it. You know what I mean, type of thing. So interesting.
Oh, it's going to be tricksy. That's for sure.
Yes, for sure.
And I guess these are little questions that they need to start hashing out, especially to a lot of these. Now, do I think that they're going to start, at some point down the road, that they'll sell those geotags again, the land claim beacons? I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. But it is most definitely going to be, and that's another thing too. You can have as many of these, you can buy as many of these land claims as you want.
Yeah, you can set them adjacent to each other. So I mean, you literally could have, something like whatever amount of them. I mean, and I don't necessarily know, is it a one-time payment? Is there going to have some upkeep? Is there going to be taxes? We certainly have no idea if the more stuff you put on there, maybe the more you have to pay taxes. There very well could be some mechanics that we just aren't 100% on.
Now, something that that we kind of talked a little bit about before, and I'd been talking to some other people about this as well. This kind of got brought up also, is that we know that they're going to be, well, we heard whisperings of that you'll also be able to build bases in these huge asteroids. There's going to be these, real huge asteroids out in these asteroid belts that are big enough, are going to be like Grim Hex level.
Right, exactly.
Where you can build bases inside of those asteroids. Where, we know that they're already making those type of bases that are built inside of those asteroids. And from what I understand is you, the player, will also be able to build bases inside these asteroids and lay it out however you want. One of the things that we were talking about the other night is, the Prospector, you don't see its full functionality yet. One of the big things with the Prospector is designed to do subsurface scanning. That's what that dish is on the bottom of the Prospector. So you're supposed to be able to do
like either deep core or directional drilling or directional core drilling type of thing.
Well,
right?
that was another thing too. Remember all the concept art that we saw from the Prospector from the very beginning is it sitting on the ground with its head pointing straight down, drilling into the ground.
Exactly.
And we know that they're going to be adding these big ore veins and things like that.
Yep.
Well, one of my questions is that if you changed out the head on the mining laser for the Prospector and you put on something that's a little bit bigger, or maybe this is where you get this next size up from the Prospector, you get, like a multi-crew ship, not as big as the Mole, or not designed to be like the Mole, but designed to do things like coring into asteroids.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, unbelievable. And much like the hull stripping, you wonder if then can you core away at dig different layers and what I mean, and really do create kind of do some kind of an asteroid scaping with it, with those things. So you're clearing out stuff, now that could be used for mining as well as homesteading on these asteroids.
That's the thing is that at least with some of these like bigger asteroids and things, maybe not the ones that you would build a base on, but maybe some of the bigger ones that we're going to see in the future, because we know that some of these asteroids that are going to be out in these asteroid fields are supposed to be pretty damn big. You're going to have something that accommodates an Orion.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to, exactly. I mean, that's going to be...
So you're going to have these, huge asteroids that you're going to get out there, because think, it's got to be gigantic for you to go out in a capital-sized mining vessel to crunch up, so...
I've said many times, I wish there was even now, like 13,000 or 14 or 15,000 mass rocks that only the Mole could break, You'd run into these like, oh my gosh, guys, we found a 15,000 mass rock. It's it's at 30%. You know what I mean? So you have this enormous, like something's that's 150 SCU or 200 SCU in this one rock. And the Mole
just. Let me ask you this: is that 16,000? That's that's not that big.
It's not. Well, no. I mean, of course, I would love it where they were literally 30 to 50,000. It might take 3 moles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I of course, they've got to be. I mean, what size rocks are there in space? Every size, I would imagine.
I feel like we've only got 2 mining ships in the game right now, and
it's very homogenized.
We've spoken about this before. There is most definitely plenty of room for more mining craft. We need something a little bit bigger than a mole. We need something a little bit bigger than that. We need a few. We need a few variations.
Some alien miners,
from the Orion down to the mole, right?
Absolutely.
And then we also need a few variations between the mole and the prospector. One of the things I thought is that you need a 2-person crew mining vessel to kind of handle something that you don't need. When the mole's fully crewed, you don't need a 5-person crew. You need like a 2-person crew or a 3-person crew.
Yeah, you need that 64 SCU. Exactly. You're right.
That will allow you to be able to do a little bit, bigger rocks. Or say you took something, very similar to the prospector that has that shape and, designed it to be, like I said, one of those coring vessels that we, core through those asteroids or big asteroids. And that's how you, build, you got to core that out, open up that area and build the base inside, inside of that asteroid. Or maybe another thing that I was thinking about is coring through the interior of that asteroid to where something, like a couple of prospectors could get inside of it and mine it from the interior.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and here's another thought I had too, which is, let's say with these landrite things, when you go to set up your geotac or whatever it is, however you're going to claim, are you going to be able to reach across the cave mouth?
Well, that's another thing too, right? Is that, that kind of what brought on this whole line of thinking.
Right.
Was, like we know that there's going to be these, like these ore veins that you put down these extractors upon and, mine it up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know that the prospector was set up to do that subsurface detection of minerals. Is how far, is it going to be one of those things? We know that the planet mesh is kind of a weird thing right now. It's like paper thin.
Yes.
Like if you fall through the damn thing, it's, how much outer layer, if any, or, one thing that I would definitely like to see is that, that each planet have a layer to it that, is, 20 kilometers deep, where you can actually mine inside. Now, I know that there's a lot of, at least in the areas that you claim, right? Do your claim, right? Where you can actually mine into the, inside of the planet. I know that kind of brings up a lot of problems, and they'd be kind of hard. I mean, just from a standpoint of if somebody was doing subsurface mining or being able to core inside the planet, then you would have these planets that look like Swiss cheese. So, I know that's not a practical thing, but, at some point, will you be able to at least change the topography a little bit where you can kind of, dig some area out, or where you can kind of build your base inside of, something that's a little bit more well protected, and something that, that you were asking about earlier today is how are these bases going to be protected? And I don't want to get on that just yet, but we need to talk about it. But
yeah,
is there going to be a way of deforming the planet's surface?
Well, and that's, and I don't know if it's so funny. There was a game called EverQuest Next. But there was this other little mini game called Landmark where you could actually just tunnel down and, like every surface you could just dig. And right now we have to be just brutally honest. Star Citizen, like you said, the way that the navigation meshes work, and, it's not, as anybody who's kind of gotten out, if you wander through a cave, or if you get out and you kind of,
Or you falling through the planet.
Oh yeah, you can find your way. Like if you start monkeying around on, say, Hurston or one of these places that's got like some junk on it, in fairly short order, you can find yourself falling through the planet. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of work. I mean,
back in the day when you tried to jump to a buddy on a planet and he was on the other side, and instead of the engine, driving you around the planet, it drove you right through the planet.
Oh, and there's been so many times when, like, I've got a tractor beam in a box, and I set it there, and I turn and grab another box and turn and look, hey, where's that box I just set on the ground there? I mean, that happens all the time. So I think it would be a very, we talk about the coring. I hope that maybe they can pull it off at the asteroid level. Or maybe they can kind of design something. I think it may be a really difficult challenge for, you just to kind of, what is that game like, Space Engineers comes to mind, where you can kind of...
Yeah, there's another game like that as well that really kind of gets down into it, where it's called, Empyrean. And basically, you could drill straight through a planet if you just wanted to keep going.
Or like Minecraft, you know what I mean, too. Is
yeah, it's like Minecraft in a way. And that's kind of the way Empyrean's set up. It's a great little game where you can build, freaking anything in that game. But, once you've kind of cored out that area, I do see a way of kind of, fixing that, along with a lot of other things too, where, this kind of gets brought up a lot of, if players start monkeying around with things and destroying it, it's like, well, some of these things that are, quote unquote, not supposed to be destroyed, after a while, they can respawn. Same thing too, if, with something with Star Citizen's fidelity, I don't know, it would be a lot of work to, build the planet to be completely solid.
Right.
I do see a way of, like I said, it might not be practical if you get, a bunch of people mining out a planet, drilling down into the thing or whatever. You end up, with holes everywhere. But, as long as they're not, on a land claim, I'd say these things could respawn, or, where the planet just goes back, after a certain period of time, just goes back to, its normal default set, in its default form. So
yeah, I mean, you're probably right. There could be some level of persistence there, but if you're not in there, kind of maybe they have some kind of bracings or some things that allow you to kind of be in an area temporarily. And, the minute you've kind of exhausted the vein or whatever, and you leave that area, eventually it just kind of, fills back in.
Yeah, it kind of repairs itself.
Yeah.
Goes back to the default.
Because I could never envision, well, I shouldn't say never, but it seems like it would be a bridge too far for all of a sudden you've removed some land underneath a thing, and the next time you go back, it looks like the top part of the soil is collapsed into that and all that. That seems like that would be an awful, I don't know that we're headed in that direction or not, although we certainly could be, and we have no idea what the future will bring. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to kind of think about how all this is, and one of the things that I think drives that is, I mean, when you're looking at like an 8x8 kilometer, and like you said, you could buy as many as you want. That's a lot of real estate to go looking around, for protect, to do some harvesting, to potentially look for, for things to mine and that type of thing, or, it's a decent amount of land to do some farming. You know what I mean? If that's what you're into. So these plots are, very significant sizes, and, and I think you're going to provide an awful lot of opportunity for not only homesteading, but man, a lot of more commercial like manufacturing type things as well.
Well, it's something that is how far that, all the different things that you'll be able to do with your base. We know that mineral extraction is one of them. Are we going to get to the point where we'll be also able to extract some sort of, oil or, some sort of liquid form, whether it's a polymer or whatever things like that.
And I would say yes. I mean, if you look at the subscribers vault, the Homestead Variation D, there's gas and liquid storage units. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean polymers and in gases and in liquids, and I mean you can imagine hydrogen fuel being in one of your storage units there or whatever. But yeah, I mean knowing that there are there's some there's a lot of, and it's so funny. I mean, you and I spent so much time on modular ships one time, but the modularization for base building is going to be incredible. Now whether or not whether or not there's 4 or 5 different various, like what the internals look like of a warehouse, it's hard to say. But there certainly is going to be, they certainly do seem to show some big warehouses, some small warehouses, different generators, wind and power, solar. There's communal buildings, there's housing buildings, communication towers, planetary scanners. It is, homesteading and building bases is going to be really, really fun. I mean, outside of choosing your different architecture types, man, Star Citizen's really, really going to take off when you can start kind of, gathering these assets. And hopefully that's the way base building is going to work, right? Gathering assets to build these things.
Well, here's another thing too I started thinking about is, how many hangars are you going to have to own? Is it going to be, are they going to cheese it out and go, well, you need one hangar and now we have an ASOP terminal. So any ship that you store here or whatever, or is it going to be a 1-to-1 or a 1-for-1 type thing? You have to have, for whatever size ship it is, you're going to have a hangar to accommodate that. And are you going to have, above ground hangars, below ground hangars?
Yeah, and here's that thing you were talking about really quickly earlier is this. So how much realism do you want, right? Because I'm not sure, and I'm going to pose the same question to you, Sal. I mean, I'm not sure. I understand there's going to be like a small landing pad, a medium landing pad, and a large landing pad. But I don't want to just run over to the ASOP terminal and have my Carrack magically appear.
No, and I don't,
But hey, I mean, other games would do that. Where are you at with that?
No.
That's where I'm at. No, I don't want that. Isn't that weird?
It's, look, I know that there needs to be compromise between, the amount of fidelity that you want in the game, opposed to what just makes the game hard or not fun or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Now, building something, look, I feel like if you built, because you can kind of get beyond I understand that, each hangar at a space station doesn't necessarily house every ship type of thing. So, yeah, I get it. But in the same token, if you had a base and you were going to store ships there, now I understand about having landing pads and things like that, but if you were going to store ships there, if you only have 6 hangars, you should only be able to accommodate 6 ships.
I agree with that 100%. And you're definitely not sticking a small or large ship in a medium hangar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I think depending on like the biome that you've chosen and how the weather is and how windy it is and how destructive the natural forces are, you should probably be looking at significant upkeep. And in those areas that are much more dangerous, maybe it's, then if you're choosing to put a base someplace where it's, there's solar flares and crazy things like that. Now it might be very profitable in the sense that, there's incredible resources there, but it should be a very costly venture to have those things there.
And you should be, make it one of the things, and it's kind of got brought up in Inside Star Citizen this week, where they were talking about these different landing zones on Pyro and how you can I don't know how it's going to work out, but being able to control it, or the fact that a lot of this stuff has to stay maintained and repaired. Same token with your base. I think everything has where it starts, where you have to repair all these things, certain amount of time. You have to go around and start repairing all these different components and things inside your base.
Or you have to have drones or droids do it. One of the two. Yep. You know what I mean? You have some maintenance droids or something that go around, and maybe you have like a warehouse that's got a certain amount of aluminum, corundum. Like we've talked about, kind of stockpiling these natural resources, and they use that stuff for those particular repairs.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing, is that, you doing your maintenance, or, hiring NPCs to do your maintenance. To me, going around and doing my base maintenance would actually kind of be a fun thing to kind of say, hey, what's broken, and, what's starting to break down, and all those kind of things. To me, that sounds fun. A lot of people would say that's extraneous and a waste of their time. And I only logged in, I only want to log in for an hour and play. I don't want to have to do chores or whatever the case may be.
And honestly, like it's interesting, because where my attitude is for people like that, like the rented hangar maybe. You know what I mean? Maybe the right way to go. You know what I mean?
and I really feel that these options should be available for everybody. I heard a couple of people talking about it this week a little bit, where, they don't want to do all the, external stuff and, things like, just like what we were talking about. They want to log into the game and play for about an hour or whatever, and then log out again. And I totally respect that, and I understand it. Not everybody has time in their day to do, say, base maintenance, or or all these different things. We know Star Citizen is kind of the way the way it's set up. It is definitely a game of preparation, because how many times have we loaded up, armored up, got all our stuff, got the food and water. And I'll touch on that again in a minute. And, we went out to mine or something, and, leaving the starport, leaving the space station, sneezed or something, and ran right into one of those antenna and blew up. And then, it's like, shit. Here we go. 15 minutes. Get back. It's got to respawn the ship. Go get more armor. Go get this. And go get some guns. And
I couldn't agree. That is exponential with how many people you have too. I mean, if you're trying to do a big operation, and you guys kind of take a central ship with some escorts over, and then load up a bunch of ROCs, and then decide to go ROC mining. It's minute 35 before you got the ships on board. It's not, it takes a little while if everybody logs in and, at the same time. And of course there's been issues with kind of logins, which they seem to have nipped in the bud recently, but you get everybody kind of headed in the same direction, and, everybody's happens to be on the same base, and you've taken care of all that stuff. you can bet that somebody's going to fall through an elevator, or there's something's going to happen as you're loading up. Usually, at least to one person, they're going to jump on the ship and they're going to fall through and die, or you're going to, something or another.
Well, we hope, down the road these bugs.
Oh, heck yeah, no, exactly. But it just takes a while, to get. You're absolutely right to do things, and so. I think for those people who want to just log on, I hope that they do accommodate that. You can jump on and grab yourself a quick bounty mission and go bounty hunting and log off.
I think two things can be.
I think both things can happen for sure.
Yeah, I think two things can be true at the same time. I feel like you can set the game up and to be as complicated and a pain in the ass as you want it to be. We kind of come from that where we like to do things the hard way. And we like the extraneous gameplay type, don't get me wrong. There is a fine balance between, things being physically exact to the real world, like space. We'll take like the flight characteristics of a ship. There's a fine line between the way things would be in reality in space and then actually what makes it fun to fly. So there is a there is a way to tweak it to where, flying in space makes you, feel like a hero. And it definitely feels like, that Star Wars, give you that Star Wars feeling where you're flying around and dogfighting and doing all these different things. We know that that's not exactly how space is, but, on the same token, it gives you that fun factor where, you feel like you're actually dogfighting, and instead of just being like that, like playing Asteroids where
gaining a little rep and
whatever,
exactly.
Kind of keeps you going. So.
Exactly right. Kind of, getting a few space bucks in your pocket, gaining some rep with some organization or another. Be it a good or bad, and moving on. Yeah.
But then again, I also see, we've never seen this in a game before, where, there's so much going on, and about the coolest thing that I saw when it was being developed, and people take it for granted these days. I remember when they were developing this stuff back in, like the first iterations of it was in 2016, maybe late 2015, and they called it the grabby hand, where you could reach down and pick stuff up and have it in your hand, turn it around and look at it and inspect it. People take that for granted now. When I first saw that blew me away. You could never do that in a video game.
Right.
You're just like, wow. And even in the state that the game is now, you can pick stuff up and place it wherever you want it, and all that type of jazz. That's never been seen in a video game before. So kind of getting back to how realistic do you want your game? Well, realistic, having all these cool things to do, base building, having refineries, having factories that you can build things out of,
having kind of like fleets of harvesters that you kind of deploy that are autonomous,
and and having it all kind of make sense. It's just like anything else, right? Especially when we're talking about what it would be to have, having these hangars, where you're going to have as many hangars as many ships that you want to accommodate on your base. I feel like that would be the way to go. Same thing, it's some other stuff, with how in depth do you, and I guess it's maybe the conversation is, how in depth do you want it? How in depth do you want your gameplay? Not necessarily how realistic do you want your gameplay. Same thing too. We played the crap out of survival games. I played Ark and Rust and all these different things, and just about all of them has an eating drinking mechanic. A lot of people think that's
those are tedious.
Exactly. It's just man, I don't have to deal with that. But for some reason, for me, I kind of like the maintenance of dealing with stuff like that.
Well, yes, I agree 100%.
I guess if you wanted to wrap all this up in a big old bow, is I want the immersion. That's what I want.
Yes.
Does it have to be like, well, hell, man, this is in the future, 900 years or whatever? Is it like real life? No, it's not like real life, but I want to have that immersive, environment. I want to have that immersive experience. That's what I want.
And I definitely, I mean, there needs to. I really, 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 really hope for there being some kind of a bread and butter system where it's, where you have to go out and collect. Like if you're base building, you have like if you decide you're going to build one of these communal buildings and you move into Pioneer to do that type of thing, the Pioneer basically on some kind of a, it just spits out, look, I need this much this material, this much this material, this much this material, and this much this material. And then maybe some other subcomponents that are made like on, an Expanse or something. I really hope that there is some kind, I hope it's not just like, hey, because you have the ship, it just, it'll just kind of 3D print it. You know what I mean? I do hope that there's that level of, at the very least, where, it does take some careful planning. So maybe the first thing you're building in your base is you might want to build, say, a landing pad. The second thing you may want to build is a warehouse. And the only reason you build the landing pad is because maybe you could, it would be easier to say, of course there would be refueling mechanics options there once you kind of had the right resources available. But yeah, I hope that there's some planning that goes into it. I definitely hope that it requires that you collect resources, and that you also stockpile those resources to keep those things, that you keep those things, for maintenance reasons, and then of course, as you kind of farm or do whatever it is that you do there, then you can kind of take whatever you've done in that homestead. If you're doing some mining, if you're doing some farming, if you're doing some, whatever, some science work, whatever you are doing there, you can then, of course, take that stuff and sell it, someplace. But yeah, I mean, for myself, I'm just saying that's the level I'm looking for. I hope it's not just point and click to make these buildings.
Yeah, yes. I'm pretty sure that, that's going to be the way it plays out. Mm-hmm. Where, you have to go, I mean, to us, that's the kind of the fun stuff for us to go and mine all this inert material or have to go and find these different ores, because, this particular base is going to, cost this amount of resources, and it's going to have aluminum in it, or it's going to have copper in it, and, all these different things that actually go into it. So I need 300 SCU of aluminum, and I need, 250 SCU of copper with 1,500 SCU of inert material, that type of thing.
Exactly. That's what I really hoped. In order to manufacture the things, it takes that. You know what I mean? And then in order to kind of maintain it, it takes, those kind of stuff. You have to have some stockpiles around your facility.
Yeah. you know, and I guess that's the thing is that this Pioneer is supposed to 3D print these buildings out in a sense. And, you know, I'm okay with it. I would have taken it a step further because I come from those games that we like to play. I mean, you know, even backing it up to our Galaxy days, and, you know, we like to wax poetic and nostalgic about galaxies. And
Truly.
you know, you had, you know, several different architectural styles of building, along with several different sizes of buildings as well. You know, it was pretty expansive. I mean, one of the crafting classes that you could be, one of the one of those career types that you could have was architect. I mean, there's so much crap you could build. It was unreal. But, you know, it was one of those things where the you know, that building was, you had a couple of different styles of that type of building and a couple of different looks for that type of building. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, had the material in your inventory and you already had it built, how the thing built, and then you plop it down on the ground and then boop, and it would build itself over time. Now, that's kind of what the Pioneer does. It kind of, you know, 3D prints a thing and builds it over time. And I imagine you'll get the same type of interface where you get that above ground look, and you know, you get to fit it in these areas. You know, it's like this, you know, you got to bring it over here. It's not red here. It's not red here. It's all green here. Boom. You plop it down and boom. There's your building. Now, you know, to me, I would have liked to have built it from, you know, pieces. You know, it's like a piece of wall here, and start building it up, and then putting a roof on it and all that kind of jazz. I mean, that's, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I like. But I, you know, and I get how all this was. I mean, because you couldn't have the same cool fidelity in the way these buildings look unless, you know, you went in and got it from the, you know, from the building manager, and it's going to be very similar to the way Galaxies was. So, you know, in that sense, I'm cool with it, you know. But, you know, I do like hand building things, you know, from the ground up. So,
yeah, you know, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. And of course, you know, all the different possible options down, you know, there's, you know, maybe you can get wind energy, maybe you can get solar energy, maybe, you know, obviously, and they've already mentioned that type of stuff. And of course, there are the different types of farming things, different, you know, potentially, you know, one of these things is like a metal collector, one of them is kind of a gas collector, one of them is kind of a polymer collector. You know, these types of things would be fantastic as well. You know, and then, you know, one of the things I think that, you know, I know you and I want to touch on tonight is, so you've made your claim, you've created your base. And let's just say it's a small homestead, you know, you're just kind of getting started, and you got your homestead, you got maybe a medium landing pad there, or maybe even a large landing pad with a large hangar, and you got your MSR in there, you know, a couple other buildings, you know, but not a lot of stuff there, and along comes this A2 and he drops the bomb on you. on your base.
Yeah.
How are we going to handle that, Zel? I mean, how do you see that playing out in the future?
Well, they do have the shield. They're going to have a shield generator.
Yep. So that's a start.
And they're going to be these big giant dome shields. We already saw them kind of working on them a little bit. So, and it was on a Star Citizen Live, you know, actually a couple months back, they were kind of doing that whole shield generator thing. And, you know, from what I understand is that, you know, these things are going to be pretty damn tough to take down. You know, an A2 is not going to be able to just drop a bomb on it and that'll be that. From what they were saying is that it would take a full-out ground assault a period of time to start wearing the shield down. So, in that sense, you're going to be pretty well protected. And, I'm sure that, during that time, there's stuff that you have to do and, kind of regulate the shield modulation and make sure that, you have to go to the different components and make sure they're not overheating and all these things to create this, defensive situation for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and you might be just shield generators, hey, the biggest ones you can put up there, maybe maybe you're plugging in 4 or 5 units or whatever to, type of thing.
And I feel like something like that should cost like a lot of money
or a lot of power. You really have to have a ton of power generation.
Where that also kind of goes into you being strategic with where you put all your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you put it on a dark, like kind of a dark side of what's usually a dark side of the moon with no wind.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, you cut yourself off from a couple energy sources types.
Exactly, or however we decide to generate power. Maybe it's one of those situations where one of those planets that has a lot of geothermal. Geothermal
exactly
generators and things. That actually would be pretty darn cool as well. And you're gonna, hell, we have reactors in the 900 years in the future,
right?
So, and we'll probably have cold fusion in a lot of this as well. So, it's gonna be cool to see how this lays out, and I'll get back to the shield thing here in a sec, but how you lay your base out. We know everything is supposed to be where you got to run power to it and things. That mechanic's going to be pretty wild too, right? So you have whatever generates your power, whether it's your solar array that goes into a converter, or you have some sort of cold fusion reactor, or you have geothermal. If they decide to make that a thing. So you have your power collection, you have these converters that go into your power plant, and then you have everything that's supposed to be plugged into your power plant. So are they going to make it to where you have to, certain items you have to drop the voltage down for, it's like, well, I need a voltage regulator for this one. This needs to go down to 115 instead of 2.
Yeah.
240.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, we really do get into, and then how hackable is that system, remotely as well as just kind of on site, and can you cut, do you have to build redundancy in, because if somebody cuts this one main line from this one spot to another, you're kind of hit on this part of your base.
Well, the way I see it is also building a big ass wall around your base to begin with.
Sure.
And then, try to consolidate all the essential bits. So, like you said, so we can have redundancy in that, where if something gets hit or something that, you have a backup, or, you go and repair that thing real quick, or whatever the case may be. But, it's going to be cool to see how they deal with, power regulation inside your base. And, did you build the right size generators or reactors for the amount of shields that you have to keep up?
Well, and players are smart, right? I mean, you're going to see a lot of kind of whatever bases, but you're going to see some bases where you're like, wow, I never thought to do that. That was super smart of them.
Oh, I've played in this space long enough to know, how to build redundancies in bases and make sure that the hordes don't come through. So
yep, and I mean maybe making shooting corridors and other things as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The way you lay your base out and everything else, and so and I know so you have all that's going to be pretty involved. And that is very cool on how that, because, base building can be a very, expansive thing that you do, very in depth, is, I'd say that would go into your base building. Yeah, that's one of the biggest single things that you're going to own inside the world of Star Citizen. And, probably one of the biggest amount of, is going to take probably some of the largest amount of your time.
Well, imagine the player corporations, imagine it's like, so let's say what you do in the game is you trade, right? And you've got yourself, now you've got yourself a fleet of Hull C's, D's, and you just purchased your first Hull E, and you are just a tycoon. I mean, but you don't really focus on base building, so you don't have all the, you could certainly buy a Pioneer and but you might be able to approach this organization and say, hey, I understand that your organization base builds, and they're like, yeah, here's our website. Here's this base is whatever 125 million. This base is 250 million. And then you kind of order it, and then you got to get your claim together and that type of thing. But they come out and build your base for you.
I'd say.
Oh my stars! I mean, how cool would that be?
I'd say bases need to cost a pretty penny. Now, I feel like if you're wanting to just do a homesteading thing, it should be accessible to everybody. If you're, trying to build your base to where it's, also generating income, you've basically got on the best resources, the highest quantity of resources, that type of thing, where, realistically, in these unclaimed systems, somebody's going to want to knock you off.
Well, and that's how it's gone for years, right? I mean, cities that build on themselves on rivers, but the closer you can build a construction yard to the resources, that is an enormous thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it's there's going to be some competition for these things, and they're going to have a way for there to be competition for these things. And you may certainly see where, an organization, they are having a great, they've set up this base, they're doing fantastic. Maybe there's another organization that's very interested in taking over that place, and, whatever, kind of use some spying and some other types of things to try to kind of figure out a weak moment where they can put the ground forces on there and take it over. What I mean? And so it's gonna, yes, that type. And listen, I think that's a win-win for CIG and everybody in some capacities. I mean, it would be interesting to see if obviously I'd like to see people to be able to build a little homestead and not have it messed around with that much. And I mean that. What I mean? But I do think when things get to be a certain size potentially, or they're maybe over a certain valuable resource, then maybe there are different rules around those things.
Well, it's most definitely going to be the situation. Basically CIG is, really wanting the thing that, we also got to keep in mind is they're building out the tools for us to build out the rest of, their galaxies,
exactly.
Their universe. That's their big purpose these days. They want you to be able to build the rest of the world out for them, once the game gets rolling. And I know that there's going to be, there's going to be things in place that keep people from just, trolling your base and things like that. I know that that shield generator situation is supposed to be pretty darn durable. It's going to take a pretty sizable org or a pretty sizable amount of people to and a lot of equipment to bring the shields down. And I know that your base, from what I understood, and of course all this stuff is subject to change, and but it's going to be like a lot of other games where people can't attack your shit if you're not logged in. So your base is, if your orgs and stuff are not logged on, if it's in the middle of the night or something, I know people can't attack, shouldn't be able to attack your base when you're not there. so a lot of things like that, and to make sure that they get the meshing, like the surface meshing of these planets, and the way the way a lot of this stuff is, so people can't cheese it and go under the planetary mesh and come up underneath it, and stuff like that. So that so they can't cheat it.
I mean, I just like all my stars, and I mean, could you?
That's going to be some of the challenges that they're going to run into, because you see it in all these survival games, like in Ark, and I mean, that was one of the biggest things ever, where they'd found exploits and go under the dadgum planetary mesh, or go under the ground mesh, and come up in your base, So,
well, and it's going to be amazing. I mean, I really can't wait for I mean, obviously for it's just like, to me, like, I log in and I go to this panel. I'm in, say, my own kind of personal like my small personal hab. Maybe I walk over to the communal building. It's got like kind of a kiosk. I check the kiosk and it's like, hey, the life support system on warehouse B is needs a little maintenance. Kind of go do something like that. Oh my, I know people may not necessarily, for me though, that's just going to be the cat's meow. And, and of course, if there is some kind of a situation where, eventually there's manufacturing or some level of, some kind of a factorio, if you will, or something like that, where, you can actually do that type of, I mean, that's, that would be just absolutely fantastic. And even if it just stays around kind of homesteading and landing your ship and just being able to kind of grow some food and that type of thing, I would be okay with it. It will be interesting to see how far it goes.
So, the a lot of the things that they've already talked about with interior options, you got your habs, you got your armory.
Yep.
You have, you talked about a little bit about this earlier with the warehouses. So you got storage facilities.
Yep.
You're gonna have your med stations.
Yep.
So you're gonna have a whole big med area.
Different types of botanical, like farm type things.
Yeah. You're gonna have hydroponics.
Exactly.
You're gonna have mining and refinery.
All sorts of different types of storage type containers. So some are going to be gas storage. Some are going to be solid storage, all sorts of different kinds of solar panels, some of them on the ground, some of them on stands.
It was, so you got your oil and gas extractors, which we talked about before, your solar panels, we talked about those. Moisture extractors, that's another thing too. So you have,
a little Tatooine action in there.
We talked about the geothermal. They had that with the geothermal heat pump, and landing pads, and then just build a whole crap load of turrets.
You're absolutely right about that, man. Holy smokes!
And then hire as many NPCs to walk them walls and things. So, I think it's gonna be awesome, dude.
Oh, I just can't wait. I mean, I agree with that 100%. I mean, the day that we're actually, obviously we're kind of putting our foot on the gas. We're gonna build our first base, and we've mostly focused on. You did a really good job of talking about potentially how you can build them out on asteroids, of course, moons and planets and. There's going to be, there's obviously different kinds of bases. There certainly could be just deep space, like a Deep Space Nine type, thing. Obviously that's kind of like one kind of space station. We haven't really talked about that, but I definitely know that there's going to be kind of these ship, if you will, like, have different ships just kind of floating around in space that are connected to each other, more or less, or you EVA to the different ships. These deep space kind of locations where there's, you might have all of but we've talked, specifically to like the habitation modules and the liquid storage and material storage and planetary scanners, the power plants, refineries, the small houses, big houses, all that stuff. It's going to be so incredible to be able to make yourself like a a little homestead, or potentially like an organizational, like kind of got a central organizational area, and then people have their homesteads around it. Oh my gosh, it's and then you just kind of go out and jump on your bike and head over to the communal building. It's gonna be fantastic.
Just think if you bought up. How big is how big do you want to go? So what if you bought up 10 parcels of 8 kilometer sections and stuff? You have this big giant area. Now I think it gets to the point where you go too big and it's gonna be harder to defend, that type of thing, where unless you get that. I'm sure there's going to be
You're working overtime with your Nautiluses on all.
Yeah, man. I think you're going to hit that, their sweet spot in, the size of base that you probably need. And but yeah, it's going to be pretty awesome. And, it probably will be, for a lot of people, probably will be an org size endeavor. Just to keep it rolling, just to keep it defended. That's your base of operations, or whatever the case may be. Like we said before, I feel like two things can be, true at the same time, where you can have a homesteader type thing where you have a little base of your own, and you'd probably want to build that somewhere in UEE space where, the Navy can come protect you.
Mm-hmm.
People do get crime stats if they, blow up your stuff.
Yep.
Or whatever. But we also know that the more lucrative things are going to be in, uncontested areas, or, Vandal contested areas. It's a risk reward thing. So, in these areas that, and maybe we need to find out, like you do have these extractors, and you're making, you're making a passive income from, doing ore, or some sort of liquid extraction, and how much, on the high end, how much money could you be generating passively from your base? That's I'd like to see where where they're going with that.
Oh, could you imagine? I mean, if let's say you just happen to be, maybe you have it's a gaseous type biome, you know what I mean, and you've got a bunch of gas collectors on there, and you have like 10 landing pads there, and it's just one of these places where you're in a great spot where people will hit your planet and come refuel. And you've got quantum stocks, quantanium stocks, and you've got hydrogen stocks, and that's the only thing your base does. Is you just got like 10 landing pads out there, and there are people coming in all day long and refueling.
Maybe that's the way you set it up for sure. You can make a great income doing that.
Yeah.
Also, make sure that you have ship repair in the area, and
yes, exactly, repairs and refuels, and depending on rearming, if type of thing, if maybe if they've earned a certain level of trust with you, or whatever, but you'll certainly do repairs, and you certainly do refueling, and for whatever reason you just happen to be in a system that doesn't have a lot of options, and you just kind of corner the market on that stuff.
Yeah, and maybe it's something that we used to see in Galaxies too, where remember, depending on how far we go with crafting, it's something that you and I have spoken about a lot, and definitely feel like it is a natural extension of this game. Is also we saw that in Galaxies where these big crafting collectives would just build a whole big city.
Yeah.
And it'd be, that's where you went to shop for everything.
Yeah.
That was the one awesome thing about, Galaxies, is that everything was player driven. The economy was completely player driven. Everything that you owned in the game, besides maybe a few things that you've looted out of at the time that was super hard to get in and out of, like the Mandalorian bunkers and things like that. You may loot items out of there, pieces of armor and things like that. But for the most part, the game was set up that everything that you owned, everything that you used, was player built.
And if it was any quality at all. I mean, there was some basics you could buy around here and there, but if you're looking for the best chest armor of a certain variety, that would stop like laser energy or whatever, that type of thing. I mean, it was absolutely player crafted.
Yep. I mean, it even extended with everything. Just about anything that you built in game.
Piece of clothing, all your outfits, everything. I mean, it's crazy.
It had a quality level to it. So, you could make what would be considered like legendary, quality items, and they were all player made. And, I feel like that's fantastic. And it drove the economy. It also drove, interactions between players.
It made players like search the galaxy for the person who's the best rifle maker.
Yeah, it really did. And you became friends with those people and met a bunch of people through that. And, it really did. And the game was set up to drive player engagement. So I feel, it's definitely one of the things that CIG that's, top on their list is what can we do to drive player engagement? And, these are the things. I mean, we talked about it in, another podcast, like, how are you going to drive people to go buy things off the Banu Merchant? What are you, if you got the Kraken, you got the model variant of the Kraken, what's going to drive people to go buy stuff off of your, off of that thing is, because it's got to be unique. It's got to be something that you can't buy in game.
Because if you can go over to Tammany and Sons to get the same crap, that's just what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's it's like, ooh, well, I looted, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that might be interesting. I looted an artifact, and it's worth a lot of money, or you may need it for a quest, or. But, if it's just like looted items, I got a bunch of looted weapons, or I got a bunch of looted armor. It's like, well, shucks, I could go do that myself. It's not unique to me, right?
Right. That's the real danger of the homogenous, nature of things. You know what I mean? And right now, I mean, as it sits, I mean, I think we're on the precipice of understanding. And exactly which way some of those things are going to head, and I really do hope that they've got there's a long-term vision there that supports kind of what it is you and I are talking about, because that will make this game infinitely playable.
Oh, and yes, this game. Kind of going back into the, what we were saying before is, what are you wanting out of this game? Are you, how real, how one-to-one with real life do you want it? Well, I don't necessarily want it, like real life. And even a couple of people even brought this up, I think in Spectrum and some other things that, I've read over a period of time, is that, well, this is going to try to, they try to adequate it to like the metaverse or something. It's like, not the same thing, right?
No.
We want a extensive, immersive game environment. We still know it's a game. We're not, we know it's, we know it has sim elements to it.
Right.
But, we want a very, expansive, extensive, immersive game. That's what we want. We want to be able to build bases, build things, have gigantic, big old ships, explore, all these cool new worlds. These are all the things that we want. Does it come with, some things that are kind of, maybe a little bit annoying? Yeah, well, that's kind of part and parcel. Do you feel like that, you need to be able to, because a lot of this has to do with preparation. That's one of the things that we didn't talk about with, say, like the food and water mechanic, is all this kind of is based on your preparation.
Yep.
Did you prepare for this? Did you go out exploring? Did you go out on foot mining or exploring a cave and didn't bring food and water? These are the little things that people, find it annoying, but these are also the little kind of like little gameplay things that you have to keep up with. Do you need a toilet? Do you have to go potty? Yeah, I could say, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, there's other games that I played where, your character, they did poop, but, it was just kind of like poop and it just popped out of popped out of your character. But do I think it needs to be a thing where you have to go to the restroom to make it, a gameplay mechanic? No, not really. I mean, I could probably do away with that. Do I feel like your character needs to bathe? Yeah, I could probably get on board with that one. Especially when it relates to if they're gonna make things like reputation systems and make those very extensive. Yeah, you probably need to kind of be a little clean in civilized society if you're going to these landing zones like Area 18 or Terror, somewhere that people would be like, ooh, that guy smells or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, that one I could say, okay, it's one of those things that I don't think it's a complete, and from what I understand, it's not a necessary thing. It's just kind of a quirky gameplay thing when it dealt with reputation things. Now, like if you're in Pyro and you hadn't bathed in days and days, that would probably go off a little bit better because you're like, oh yeah, then yeah, he is probably a scoundrel because he stinks or something.
Sure, no, that's exactly right. Or but it doesn't register at all just because you kind of fit right in.
Yeah, so as it relates to like a one-to-one sim with things, I don't think it needs to be like that, but I do think that certain gameplay mechanics need to be that you need to keep up with.
Right? You got to do some planning, some layer. Things have to have some layers. You know what I mean? And I think that we're off to a pretty good start. I mean, if you think about, obviously the mining loop could use so much more stuff, but I mean, if you figure, like for instance, you go mining and then you bring it to the refinery and then you take the refinery stuff and you haul it over. I mean, it is a super simplex thing. But the roots are there. You know what I mean? So I think knowing that when you want to create these chain these things together, and you're absolutely right. I mean, there are some things that like I'm a yes on, and some things that I'm a no on. And I definitely understand when where some things are tedious for some people. And I probably lean towards being able to kind of do some, where I wouldn't think things are tedious. I would just consider it kind of planning or just kind of part of your daily routine is, if this is the thing that you want to accomplish,
Sure.
And I know different people will draw different lines, right, for what's okay for them. But, it's going to be, all these things are still up in the air a little bit. We don't know, you know what I mean? So it's absolutely been nice to pontificate on it some tonight.
Well, like we said earlier in the beginning, it's finding and it's tweaking, finding that immersive but still fun gameplay. I don't think everything has, and nor do I want it that way. It's like I'm not trying to. Yes, this is our escapism or whatever, but I'm not trying to escape into a different world. I just want a fun, immersive game. which the likes of, let's face it, man, no one's seen a game like this. If they pull it off, and we hope they do, man, we've never seen anything like that. And I know we're about to wrap it up, and I'll just put this one out there too. It's like, how, maybe it's one of those things is, how real do you want your game? Maybe the question that you need to ask is, how immersive do you want your game? Do you want one of those things where you went to fought against, some alien critters on this, really off the beaten path world, and you got some kind of weird alien disease or something? So, would you want those type of mechanics, or do you are you in the camp of where I just want to log in and play for an hour?
Well, and and maybe that's a great thing that we might consider later, like with Death of a Spaceman. Should there be kind of, like you were saying, like disease mechanics or other things that kind of maybe, impede your vision, or, who knows, you know what I mean? As your body degrades a little bit, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, and I think everybody's, going to have different lines for some of that stuff, but I definitely, when it comes to the base building side of it, am very much into some nuance, and I definitely hope that there's, I hope that it's more than just, pay a little bit of money and you have it.
Yep. Yep. Well, I think that's a good stopping point.
I do. And so thanks everybody for listening. Of course, as you know, generally I hand these off to Zel at the end, but like I said, I just, I want to say thanks to everybody out there if you've kind of hung on this long, and have yourself a great night. And we'll be back actually fairly shortly for another podcast here coming up before too long. So thanks, Zel. Take it away.
Well, guys, we've enjoyed your company tonight, and we hope that you've enjoyed the conversation as well. And if you do, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give us a big thumbs up. Hey, tell us what you like about base building in the comments down below, or even just kind of with the question is what is a bridge too far for you? How much immersion do you want in your game? Leave us some questions down below. We'd love to hear from you. And with that being said, we'll join you next week on another Runners Report.